Let's talk Miami recruiting right now. You were in Coral Gables this week. You took a midweek official visit. It was only about 24 hours. You were on the campus in Coral Gables. You got to sit down with Mario Cristobal on a very special day. It was his birthday. A couple Libra brothers sitting down together. You got to talk behind the scenes of kind of what makes this Miami program go. Give me your thoughts after the visit on Mario Cristobal, on their recruiting approach, and just how Miami's building this roster.
Well, I think it's just the chemistry that they have in the building as a coaching staff led by Mario Cristobal, his on-field coaches, his personnel department. Everybody's pulling in the same direction. Everyone dedicated to Miami football, recruiting, transfer portal, player development, scheme. And you're seeing the results on the field. Mario Cristobal called the 2023 and 2024 recruiting classes the two best in program history. And then they've certainly added to that with major recruiting wins out of the transfer portal. Cam Ward, Tyler Barron, Damian Martinez right off the top. So from a roster construction standpoint, they've had a plan and a vision. When they arrived in December of 2021, earmarking this season as the one for them to really take off. And so far, so good. But Mario Cristobal was quick to point out all the people giving the program praise, or most of the people giving the program praise, were also some of the same people that were dogging the program after the Georgia Tech game last year. And you're only as good as your last ball game. And they have another big test against Virginia Tech, a veteran football team, on Friday night. There's going to be some elements from the weather going on in that ball game. But look, this program is obviously extremely dedicated to talent acquisition, and it's led by Mario Cristobal. No head coach is more involved in the relationship part of recruiting and probably not more involved in the evaluation part of recruiting as well. I know that at the end of each night, he watches about 16 to 20 prospects and probably doesn't even get a chance to get to that till about 11 p.m., watches recruits till about 1, 2 in the morning and does that every night and loves it. He says he doesn't have any hobbies. He used to do some UFC stuff when he was younger. Now he goes fishing twice a year. But he said it's always been about the Canes for him, even when he worked elsewhere. So he's at his dream job right now. And so anytime he's in that office, he loves being there. And they're getting new facilities too, Josh. $400 million being poured into a brand new facility that they're going to start building after the season. So once they add that to their arsenal on the recruiting trail, they're already recruiting at a high level, so I don't know how much better they can recruit, but certainly being able to point to a new 7-story state-of-the-art recruiting structure with a golf simulator in there amongst many other amenities that they're going to have for players and coaches. It's going to be fantastic.
One of the things I've noticed about this roster under Mario Cristobal is how he's built from the trenches up, right? And it's kind of, like you said, it's built up to this season. So far, so good. But did he speak about the importance of recruiting the offensive and defensive lines at Miami?
Well, that's been his calling card. That's how they rebuilt Oregon into a championship contender out there in the Pac-12. And then at Miami, the first big recruiting class that they signed was highlighted by the best offensive line haul in the country. Last year's class was certainly one of the best defensive line classes in the country. A lot of young guys that haven't become household names from a mainstream college football standpoint, but a lot of guys that are really pushing this roster. They've created a lot of internal competition because of the way that they've recruited young guys, and guys like Justin Scott are pushing guys like Tyler Barron, and you're seeing the results on the field. Justin Scott, of course, being a 5-star defensive lineman that flipped from Ohio State to Miami last cycle, and the product is this is the number 2 offense in the country. Cam Ward, their quarterback, is one of the leading Heisman contenders. He's got a chance to hear his name called early in the NFL draft. And then this defense, which is especially stout against the run, ranks number 10 nationally.
All right, let's hit on some of these top targets for Miami moving forward. Right at the top, you got DJ Pickett and Aiden Andy, a pair of cornerbacks, elite cornerbacks, committed to LSU. But hey, Miami's already gone to that commit list and taken corner Jabari Antoine, who's from the state of Louisiana, off, and now he's committed to Miami. So do they have a shot at flipping either one of these LSU standouts?
Well, these guys are having dialogue with Miami, and anytime that you continue to conversate with Mario Cristobal and that Hurricane staff and the track record of major flips that they've had, Jordan Lyle, their talented true freshman running back who they flipped from Ohio State. You don't count them out for anybody. Am I going to predict that these guys are going to be in the Miami class today? No. Would I be surprised if DJ Pickett is in the Miami class come December 4th in the early signing period? That is also a no. Aiden Anning, I think that's probably more of an uphill climb with him being a Louisiana kid. But Miami was one of the first programs to identify him as a potential national recruit. That's a relationship they've had for a long time. And then certainly DJ Pickett, all the Miami connections to his family. He's going to be back for the Florida State game. So we'll continue to see what happens. He's got 2 more visits planned for LSU. He was at LSU last weekend. LSU's doing everything right. They did everything right to close that recruitment at the end of the summer. And he still has a lot of love for LSU, but Miami's there intriguing and they're rolling.
All right. Up next, you see Kellen Wiley. He's at Armwood. He's an on-3 outlier. The rest of the industry has him as a 3-star. On3 has him as a top 150 4-star. So Kellen Wiley, I would say Miami has the inside track on him. Now I want to move down to wide receivers, Dallas Wilson and Vernell Brown, a pair of elite in-state wide receivers that are committed to other programs. Vernell Brown, UF legacy, committed to the Gators, while Dallas Wilson is committed to the Oregon Ducks and has so for about a year and a half now. Dallas Wilson has been pledged to the Ducks. So do you think that if Miami's season continues in the long game, not, this weekend, but could they foreseeably flip one of these in-state elite wideouts?
Well,
I guess you could put Jamie French on that list too. Why not?
Sure. And let's put Joshua Moore on that list as well. Tyler Williams committed to Georgia. They're having dialogue with as well. Joshua Moore is my best bet from that group. I actually think that that's trending in a great direction for Miami to ultimately flip Joshua Moore from Florida. Dallas Wilson and Vernell Brown, I think, are going to be tough flips. I would say Vernell maybe even tougher than Dallas. Dallas committed to Oregon. Vernell committed to Florida, all the Florida ties in Vernell Brown's family. Jamie French is a bit of a wild card, right, in the sense that, I don't have him on flip watch right now, but just the way his recruitment has gone, former Alabama commit, Ohio State led once, Texas grabbed the lead in the spring, then they battled LSU and Miami to get him. That one's had some fluidity to it, so we'll see what happens. Miami continues to have dialogue with Jamie French, the Texas commit. So if you're asking me to kind of rank those receivers on their flip potential, Joshua Moore, I actually think he'll ultimately end up in Miami's class. Then I would go maybe, and then there would be a drop off, but they're alive for Jamie French, Dallas Wilson, Tyler Williams, Vernell Brown. I would rank those 4, but it's not close between 1 and 2.
Yeah. All right. Up next on the list, we got TJ Alford. So if there is that traditional Ohio State Miami flip in December, I would watch linebacker TJ Alford. The interesting name on here, though, is Solomon Thomas. He's a 5-star offensive lineman committed to Florida State. Florida State really struggling, and there's some teams that are trying to get their hooks in Solomon Thomas, Miami being one of them. Solomon Thomas right now, though, saying all the right things about his Florida State commitment, but this is a big fish out there that teams are trying to get. Do you think Miami, in the end, is going to be making a play for Thomas?
Well, I just think they're viewing Solomon Thomas the same way they're viewing Ben Hanks Jr., top 100 cornerback committed to Florida, as this long game marathon, see what happens as their process continues, because Solomon Thomas is saying the right things about Florida State, and I think he genuinely feels that way about the Noles. He's excited about playing for Mike Norvell, Coach Alex Atkins and that staff. He was at Florida State last weekend, saw the Seminoles beat Cal, get off the snide. So Miami's just kind of hanging around and seeing what happens with some of these guys, and the real recruiting is going to come in November. And we know that Miami is well positioned. Their infrastructure is off the charts. Their coaches' dedication to recruiting is off the charts. The way they're playing right now is off the charts. So we'll see what happens when these final conversations happen with these prospects. And Solomon Thomas is one that Miami is going to make a run at late. But right now, I still would have him sticking with Florida State.
All right. We've seen Mario Cristobal get aggressive late. without having a monster season. I mean, if Miami has the season that we think they can and maybe potentially run the table, be a one-loss program, I mean, what's the ceiling for this Miami class in 2025?
Well, they've had 2 straight top 10 classes. They're looking for a third, potentially another top 5 class with all the names we mentioned. And Derry Norris is a defensive lineman currently committed to Georgia Tech that they would also love to add. I think that we could see Miami move into the top 10 for sure. And then if they get real crazy, if this gets wild down the stretch, maybe they even pop into the top 5 if they can flip a DJ Pickett and a Joshua Moore and players of that caliber. But I think this is a coaching staff that has a lot of continuity, a personnel staff off the field led by Dennis Smith and Stephen Field that does a great job, that's dedicated to Coach Cristobal. Again, the infrastructure is going to be there for Miami to be competitive in an NIL space. So I just think that Miami is going to be a program to watch down the stretch, and I don't expect much turnover on their coaching staff. We're not hearing much about their coordinators and head coach jobs right now, but that's soon to come if they keep it rolling.
All right, Miami fans, huge Miami segment to open the Wiltfong Whip Round. Talk to us, comment section below. Who is your top ad if Miami can run the table, and where do you think this class ultimately finishes? And also, comment section below, how about a happy birthday for my guy Steve and Mario Cristobal? Drop them down below.